So Jamie,
Carol,
we haven't been together for a couple weeks here. We had a holiday in there.
Yep.
And so this is our first time back, and we were going to talk a little bit about lard.
Yes, because that happened in your kitchen.
Yeah, that happened in my kitchen. I've done, this is my second batch of lard this season. So this time I did leaf lard.
Yes.
And this is from my pigs. We don't have a whole lot of fat that comes off of our cattle because they're 100% grass fed.
Yeah, so you don't get a lot of beef tallow.
No, we don't, because if you want to have any fat at all in your ground beef, they almost have to utilize that tallow to get that you don't have.
And the ground beef we've gotten from you is very, very lean.
It's very lean. Yep. Anyway, so I have like 40 some pounds of pig fat over at the
butchers.
At the butcher. So I was like, do I have some more over there? He's, oh yeah, I got like 40 pounds over here. What, you need some? And I'm like, yes, I do need some. I'm going to be utilizing it here. I had done a post on Facebook and Instagram about, me rendering lard in a crock pot, because that's how I do it. And so then I thought, well, maybe I should take a look at if there's benefits to lard or whatever. And so I went down that rabbit hole. And so I found myself on Mommy Papamas. And she does rendering in the crock pot as well. And she had a little thing on there about why she uses lard, why you should use it. Here's her reasons. And she had like, I don't know, maybe 6 reasons on there. Her first reason, and this is something I did not know, she mentioned that pig lard, is the second richest source of vitamin D. According to Sally Fallon's Nourishing Tradition, there is, in 1 tablespoon of lard, there's up to 1,100 units of vitamin D in it.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, that is really interesting. It's second to cod liver oil. Cod liver oil's got the most. But I thought that was really interesting. The only thing is that it's got to be a pastured pig.
Yes.
So it cannot come from a confinement farm where all the pigs are raised inside, that type of thing. And ours are outdoors all the time. They don't even have a shelter in the winter.
No, they just got their pile of hay.
They've got their pile of hay, straw, whatever, and they bury themselves in there, and they do just fine that way. But I thought that was really interesting, and my first thought was, oh my goodness, I can take Chastity off of one of her medications if I use the lard from our pigs. If you know me, I want her on the minimum amount of medications possible. Yes. And I mean, she really isn't on that many anyway, but I'm just like, that is just one more I can eliminate now. I haven't done that yet because I have this bottle of vitamin D that I would prefer to use up before I start that. And I figure I've got 40 pounds of lard over there. What a nice way. She needs to have fat in her diet anyway. So she has avocado is what I use. I use a whole avocado in her diet, and that's what I usually use for her fat. But now I can actually give her lard and eliminate a medication. I'll probably still do the avocado because it's good for her. It's got other nutritions, but that was what I used for a good fat for her. And I thought, what a nice way to be able to utilize something that we raise.
Actually, so when you said start talking about lard, and then let's put it up, let's talk about it. I went down. I didn't.
You went down a different rabbit hole.
I went down a different rabbit hole this morning for a little bit, but I found some more benefits to using lard. The biggest one is it's high heat. You can cook with it. So I have in the past we make donuts on Christmas morning. We have for 26 years.
Right.
So I've always used lard for that. And then actually, it's heart healthy. We were talking about why has fat in the United States been villainized and made, stated to be bad for us. It comes back to, it was a campaign by Procter & Gamble. They had, back in the 1800s, they had cottonseed oil. They had cottonseed. And what do you do they didn't know what to do with cottonseed. It's a company. And it's like, okay, we got this product. How are we going to make money? And through, a process, using chemicals and stuff and high heat, they made cottonseed oil, which is one of the worst oils for you. But they took that and they made it into a lard substitute, which we know as Crisco. And so it was a campaign thing to replace lard and butter usage with Crisco so that people would buy Crisco and stuff, and that it was villainized that, the high cholesterol and the animal fats were bad for you and everything. And so that's what I have been taught my whole life. That's what I believed. And, we lived through the 80s and 90s where low fat and everything. And, it's still to this day, I kind of still have to say it and think, no, fat is good. Fat is not the enemy that we have been made out to be.
Right. Yeah. It's very interesting how they can change your thinking with the ad campaigns like that. I had read that quite a few years ago about how Crisco came about. Wow, that is just really interesting to see how a company with enough money can change something that's our ancestors ate for years and years.
Yeah, you sit and thinking about our parents, great-grandparents and grandparents didn't die of high cholesterol, didn't have anything stated about high cholesterol.
Have you ever done any research on heart disease and how they say how heart disease shows up about the time that the Crisco starts? And it's interesting.
I hadn't gone down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, I'm not going to quote a whole lot of things, but I know that they say that heart disease didn't really exist until we started manufacturing things that aren't
the ultra processed food.
And that type of thing. That heart disease really didn't exist before that.
Well, other health issues in that article, I found this article on darlenegourmet.com is about. I was looking for rendering. She had history of lard and stuff like that, and that was in her article there. It was a really good, interesting article about that, and it was through her website. She had linked to another website where it talked about the 10 reasons why you should use lard, and that was one of and one of them was heart health. That's good because I love my butter, and I love cooking with it. And, but I remember if you were going to cook with lard, that you had to. I don't know how, I haven't really investigated, but like my mom's sugar cookies, it states that in the recipe it calls for shortening, which would be Crisco.
Right.
And I quit making those because I quit using shortening. I thought, but I wonder if you can just replace that with butter. So if it called for 3/4 of a cup of shortening, would you use 3/4 of a cup of butter?
The only thing I know about that is that because of the different heat points, like butter cookies have a tendency to be like flatter.
Okay, they spread out.
Yeah, they spread out. If I remember right from my reading, I've read about this stuff before.
Yeah, I don't remember.
If you change stuff like that, then you end up your texture of your cookie changes. Because for me, I don't use oil in my cooking a whole lot in my baking and stuff. I replace it with applesauce, and I have really never noticed any real difference. But I've never tried using applesauce as a replacement in a cookie.
Why are you replacing your oil with applesauce? Is it because the oil was supposed to be bad for you?
Yes. And I don't like that oily flavor, honestly.
Oh, okay.
Like my pumpkin bars call for
oil,
cup of oil.
Oh.
And I was like, I don't want to eat that, So oh my gosh, this is years ago. Madison was probably little when I researched that and figured out, and she's 24 now. And so I've been using applesauce as a substitute probably for 20 some years.
Well, yeah, I've heard that, and it was partly because of the heart health issue is that you should replace your oil with applesauce because for a healthy version.
Right. And the other reason was probably because we had 2 apple trees in the backyard, and I had so much applesauce. So it's an easy way to try to use up some of it.
Yeah.
Some of it. I really can't say for sure why I decided that. Besides, I don't like oil.
Yeah.
I'm not really a fan of vegetable oil. I'm not.
Well,
I never have been.
I haven't used vegetable oil in years, but I use avocado oil and olive oil. Now I'm selective about my olive oil because I don't like olive oil to make mayonnaise. No, don't like it. But avocado oil, I don't know if it has a more neutral flavor. If I don't mind putting that, but I don't make my own mayonnaise very often. I don't use a whole lot of mayonnaise.
Well, we don't eat mayonnaise in our house.
Well, I like mayonnaise. I just don't eat a lot of it.
Let's see. Let's go back to lard again. Okay, so yeah, I had seen that about the being heart healthy, and it talked about and I don't even know how to say this word. That lard is 45% OLEIC acid. I don't know how to pronounce that word.
Yeah, I don't either.
And it happens to be a mono unsaturated fat that's found in olive oil.
Yep. So that's the good fat.
That's the good fat. And so the
good cholesterol.
Yeah, the mono unsaturated fats are responsible for lowering LDL levels while leaving HDL, which is your good cholesterol levels, alone. And people are like, oh, you got to stay away from all the fats and everything if you have heart problems or whatever. And it's so wrong. it's just so wrong.
Especially if it's like yours, if it's pasture raised.
Yeah. The other thing is that pig fat or lard is actually sustainable and it's affordable and it's easy to find. Pigs can live anywhere.
Yep. Any conditions.
Yeah, in any conditions. They can live in wherever. They're very, very adaptable, and it's pretty easy to find them. The only problem is finding the healthy ones, the ones that are pasture raised, because most pork today in the grocery store, and probably most lard you find in the grocery store, is not the lard that you would find off the pigs that I raise.
And actually I have looked at buying lard in the store, and most of it is hydrogenated. Yep. So it's not healthy for you whatsoever. Yep.
A person really needs to rethink their health and how food affects you.
Yes.
I don't know, pig fat, whatever. But, our ancestors were really smart.
Yeah. Yeah. You sit and think about, 100 years ago, that's what
probably
they used.
More than 100 years ago.
Yeah.
If they were making Crisco or something like Crisco in the 1800s.
Yeah.
That's over 100 years ago. We're in 2022.
Yeah. But I'm sure they're, they did probably not become mainstream in every, general store out here on the prairies.
Right.
Until later, until they could move products quickly.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. And let's see. You also mentioned that it's a versatile fat and it has a really high smoke point. The smoke point is, I read that it was at 370.
I didn't go that far.
That's the smoke point. At least that's what Mommy Papamus said. She said your lard is probably your secret ingredient to most of those blue ribbon or purple ribbon pie crusts that you see at the fairs, at the county fairs, the state fairs and stuff like that, that most pie crust or pastry people, use lard because
they're flaky.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I did not have lard for our pie crust at Thanksgiving. And so I used all butter. And Madison helped me. I made the crust and whatever, and she did all the pinching and everything. And we had this beautiful crust because I made single crust pies. I made a pecan pie and a pumpkin pie. She had this beautiful pie crust. And so I pop it back in the refrigerator, because she's primped it and done all of her fancy stuff before I put the filling in. And in the oven, it all just kind of sank. And that's because it's butter.
Butter.
Yep. And, and you never have a real flaky crust when you use all butter. And I know that because I've done all butter before, but I was just so disappointed because it's like, I wish I would have had some lard on hand. Yeah. Because that would have really, I think that would have helped, keep the shape of what she had done. And she had done a really nice job. And it still looked okay. It just wasn't as pretty after it was baked.
So how'd it taste though?
Oh, it tasted good.
It was that better.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. But yeah, I would probably next time, because now I have lard again. So for Christmas, it'll be different. But I was like, it was pretty.
I'd be interested. I want to take my mom's sugar cookie recipe and replace it, the shortening with lard 1-to-1 and see how that works.
Yep. And then
you got to start somewhere. But that was the holy grail of cookie recipes when we were kids. Mm-hmm. I mean, we didn't do a lot of Christmas baking cookie type stuff at our house, but we made sugar cookies. And they weren't always we didn't always roll them out and cut them. A lot of times we rolled them into balls and then put them on the cookie tray. And then you took a glass that had a pattern or something on the bottom of it and you dipped it in the sugar and then you smushed them down. Is that a term? Yep. I smushed them out. And so whatever pattern was on the glass, that was that was your cookie. And then you would sprinkle them maybe with colored sugar, but not a lot of times it was just plain white sugar cookie.
We never did that way. We rolled all our cookies and then we put frosting on it and then we put sprinkles on top of it. That was the Christmas cookie I grew up with. And of course my mom used shortening. We used butter on our table. Everything else was made with margarine.
Oh yeah.
Margarine was cheap. Oh my goodness. It was cheap. You could buy like a pound for 25 cents or something. Yeah. It was cheap or 3 for $1 or something like that. All of our cookies were made with margarine.
Yep. We raised hogs when I was in junior high. So we would have lard around, but I remember Mom buying butter at the store in a big, big 1 pound tub. But then they had food coloring packets there right beside it that if you wanted yellow butter, you could put yellow food coloring in your butter to make it yellow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember in the store they had it as a kid. I'm like going, no, that's really strange. But that was it. But yeah, we baked with Crisco. And, but then we did, if we had lard, we would bake with lard.
I remember when butter flavored Crisco came out.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
that was the 80s or 90s,
yeah,
wasn't it?
The 80s. I was still living at home, so we have to be in the 80s somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember that. And then it was in you could buy it in like a stick or whatever. So it was almost like butter. So you could actually measure it out.
It was easy to measure.
Yep. They made it really, really convenient for those home cooks who wanted to use that or whatever. And my mom used it in her house.
And they did the best that they could, and
with the knowledge they had.
Yep, and they used the campaign. That was what was taught to them, and that's what you believe until you learn different. I mean, I remember being taught that butter and all that was bad in the 80s. When I moved out, I remember when I was living on my own that we had a friend that was the county extension, worked in the county extension, and she did a class on. I don't even remember what it was, but she talked about how bad butter was for you.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, that, the cholesterol and everything, and it was bad. And so that's when I was like, oh, didn't know that.
We, like I said, we always had real butter. We always had real butter on the table. But other than that, no. And I remember when Rich and I got married, he was like, no, I come from a dairy family. We will always have real butter in the house. Not that we didn't have margarine as well, but when it came to the table and putting it on bread and all that kind of stuff, it was always butter.
I hate to say it, when Bob and I met, it was margarine.
Well, it was cheap.
His mom, I can't see his mom using, but maybe she did use margarine, especially maybe after his dad passed away when he was 16. And so maybe after his dad passed away, that's what she bought. Oh, I bet 10 years ago, I bought butter for me and I bought margarine for him and the kids.
Okay.
And the kids used whatever was out. But yeah, I'm like, I know I want to have butter.
Yep. And see, I never liked the flavor of margarine anyway. So I would never put margarine on my bread
and it's
or
acquired taste like a lot of other things in our life that, we shouldn't.
Yeah, I never liked it. I mean, it was okay in cookies and stuff. I mean, my mom's cookies were just fine, whatever. But to put it on, no, it had to be butter. Of course, we use butter exclusively in our house now. We don't.
Oh, yeah, we do too.
I haven't bought margarine in years.
It's probably been 4 or 5 years that I haven't bought margarine. I buy butter. All of a sudden, he converted, and I'm like, yes.
If you're going to use lard or you're going to buy pig fat, just make sure you know where the conditions that pig was raised in. That would be my biggest thing, is make sure it's seen sunshine and happy days and all that type of stuff, because you're not doing yourself any favors if you're buying lard at the store from a conventionally commercially raised hog that's been raised in a barn.
Because I know I've bought back in 2000 when it was all the hog, farmers could not get their hogs to market. There was no place to process them. Mm-hmm. If I did buy hogs from a local friend that, he has a confinement, and I bought from there. And so it's like, I did what we did. They were an awesome price, and I bought lard from him because he had it. Uh-huh. But what was really funny is I bought it a bucket, and I learned I don't remember which side was that, but I had froze a lot of it. Mm-hmm. And I still have some of that in the freezer, but the stuff that I left in the bucket started molding. And I found out why. Okay. It was not either cooked long enough to get all the water out of it, or it wasn't strained well enough to get all the cracklings out of it.
Okay.
And so that left food particles or water in the lard, and that will make your lard
mold or go rancid and whatever.
Yeah, go rancid faster. And actually, that was one thing I said, read, is that, like you said, you rendered it and put it in a glass jar, and it said that it was shelf stable now. And so you wouldn't have to can it, with canning lids or anything, that it should be fine for up to a year. And so that, I was always saying, no, you need to keep that in the refrigerator because it'll go rancid. I mean, as long as you strained it really well and cooked it long enough to get all the water out, it should be shelf stable.
It should be shelf stable.
And if you wanted to go longer, if you put it in the freezer, it would be good for longer. And I thought that was interesting.
Yes. It's, you don't think about putting some of this stuff on the shelf.
No. I would have found room in my extra. I would either freeze it or I'd find extra room in my refrigerator. So the stuff that did mold, I still have some of that in the freezer. It's 2 years old and I'm still using it. But yeah, I'm glad I put it in the freezer. And I vacuum packed it and put it in the freezer. So it'll last, I'm sure, another year or so in there.
Well, I actually saw a jar of lard I made when we were still living in the trailer house out here. So it would be prior to 2012. And that lard is still good in that jar. It's just in a glass peanut butter jar, old jar somebody gave me with a lid on it. And looks exactly like it did the day I put it in there. And
so you didn't open it or anything? Oh, okay.
Oh, I don't have to use it at the moment. So I was like, oh, well, look at there.
You could have had it for pie.
Yes, I could have, but I had discovered it when I was monkeying around in one of my closets or one of my pantries. And I was like, oh, look at there. Oh, I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, oh gosh, that's lard. And I haven't done lard, since we lived in the trailer house. So I know it has to be prior to 2012 because we moved into this house in September of 2012.
Oh,
so
wow.
it does stay. Well, I haven't opened it yet. Maybe it stinks. I don't know, but it looked okay in the jar.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Open it.
I should open it tonight.
You should open it and see.
I should open it and see.
But I wouldn't get rid of it, even whisk, because back to the one good use that a Crisco has for you.
Okay.
As a homesteader, as somebody that survival thing is not to use it as food, but you take and you put a wick in it.
Yep.
Either like a popsicle stick or something like that. Put a wick in it and turn it into a candle.
Yep. I have read that.
So I do have one of the tiny Crisco jars in my house, and that's all it is it's for when the lights go out. That's the only reason I have candles in my house. I don't burn candles for fragrance or anything. I only burn them when the power goes out and we need them. And so that's why I have it. Not that I have anything in it for a wick.
but you'll make one, won't you?
I'll make one when last time it was at night when it was dark. So I should get that out and try it now. But anyway, so that's the only good thing that I know Crisco is good for.
At least you have a use for it, right?
Yeah.
And, okay, so I'll have to try to open it. Let's go back to my kitchen for a second. I forgot to talk about I made homemade summer sausage.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, I completely forgot about that. I was just thinking I have some.
We need to write things down daily. Okay, what did we do? Journals.
I was thinking, gosh, I have another bag because I started another batch and it's still curing in or flavoring whatever. It's sitting in the refrigerator waiting for me to bake it. But that was a really simple recipe.
Because it kind of looked basically like a meatloaf, had spices and stuff, and you shaped it like summer sausage. I mean, it was good.
Yeah,
we had some Saturday night when we were here.
Right, and it turned out. I mean, it certainly doesn't taste like store bought, and I didn't use a casing. I just wrapped it. I did it 3 different ways. I did one without a wrap. I did one with tin foil, which I'm not real crazy about aluminum foil, and then I did the other one. I did in parchment paper. Honestly, I don't know if any of them tasted any different than the others. The one I started when we decided to eat them, when we tried them, I started with the one that hadn't been wrapped because I figured that was going to be the driest one. And we probably want to eat that one as soon as possible. And it maybe lasted 2 hours in my house. I had one slice and Rich ate the rest of the roll.
It was good, Rich. He got his protein for the day and the next.
Yes. And so, but it was a really simple recipe. I found it on allrecipes.com and it was called Sandy's Summer Sausage. And it just had liquid smoke in it, mustard seed, Morton's Tender Quick here, and pepper. I think that was all that was in it. Yeah. And I think it took 2 pounds of meat, and I made 3 logs out of it. So Rich ate, 3/4 pound of beef that day. I don't know. But yeah, it was really easy. And, it said you could add some things like paprika or whatever, but I just
You could put almost any spices in there. You want, like garlic powder, onion powder.
Oh, it did have garlic powder in it. Okay. And then I read somewhere else that somebody was like, if you like it a little bit saltier, then don't use garlic powder, use garlic salt.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought it was okay the way it was.
Yeah, it tasted good.
It was easy to make. I mean, I did leave it sit in the refrigerator and I put it in a Ziploc bag and then I kind of re-stirred it or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And I left it in there for 3 days.
So you kind of let it marinate.
Yeah, marinate kind of just to flavor it better because I had read in the comments, they're like, well, this is what I did. And I thought, well, why not leave it, flavor a little bit longer. So it worked out really well. And like I said, I've got another batch going. This time I'm doing 4 pounds. So you can see it was a hit in my house. And
so is that 3rd log gone already?
Yes, I think so. I think Rich ate that one too. But I cooked it for 90 minutes in the oven, and then I took it out, let it cool, and then put it in the refrigerator.
Cooked it at what temperature?
It was either 350 or 325. I don't remember. Okay. For 90 minutes, and then let it cool. I put it in a plastic bag, and then put it in the refrigerator, and it needed to sit in there for 12 hours before you ate it.
For your slices.
Yep. And so that's that's how it turned out. I thought
I
it
will have to
worked
try
pretty
that. I'll try the cookie recipe, or not the cookie, the cracker recipe.
Good.
There.
Yes, and then we can have homemade
Made sausage.
with your
We'll have
crackers.
to buy store-bought cheese.
Yeah, well, I do have I have that one cheese that I did make, that raw farm hard, and I still have some of that, but it tastes okay, but it's not a cheese that I would probably make again.
Oh, okay.
I probably would not
our
make it
feta
again.
cheese should be done next week.
Yeah, what did I tell you?
The 7th.
The 7th. Okay.
So
All
it's
right.
30 days that needed to be brined, right? That would be next
Wednesday.
week sometime.
Yep.
So next Wednesday. So like maybe next week we'll get together.
Yeah, maybe we can get together and see how that turned out.
Because I opened my it's in my refrigerator, and I open, I'm like, oh yeah, that's that cheese.
And that's from Cultures for Health. That was a recipe we took off of theirs from their fresh cheese kit. Kind of anxious to try that because you are a feta cheese fan. I have yet to find a feta cheese I like. We will see how this turned out.
Maybe I get a whole brick of feta cheese. They had an awesome sale for Black Friday.
Yes, I saw that.
And I went in and bought the cultures that I use for my vegetables. Did I tell you I made kimchi?
No.
Or kind of a form of kimchi. I was gifted a 12-pound head of cabbage.
That's a big one.
That's a big cabbage.
Yep.
And my husband goes, can you make kimchi? And so after researching, it's like, yeah, but...
Wrong season. Probably?
Wrong cabbage.
Wrong cabbage. Oh, okay.
You make it, traditionally it's made with a Napa cabbage. And this was just a regular cabbage. Mm-hmm. But then I did, and I couldn't find a daikon radish. So I just used radishes and I winged it. And then I had 2 jars of kimchi that I'd bought from the store. Took those and threw them in the sauce that I made. I mean, I had fish sauce and Korean hot sauce and fermented them. And so we tried those this week, and those were good. If you like spicy cabbage, spicy sauerkraut. I'm like I read somewhere about putting it on a hamburger, and I'm like, oh, that's an idea.
Yeah.
If you like spicy.
Yes. Yeah, don't like spicy. I was just going to say, I just got Napa cabbage that came in our real food bag. And I was like, I was going to make your sauerkraut recipe that you shared with me. I was like, I wonder if this cabbage will work for this. But now you just happen to say that it makes the kimchi.
But you can make regular sauerkraut with it.
Yeah, I figured that's what I would do. Texture. That was my thing for tomorrow, is I was hoping to
make sauerkraut. Then it would be done. And if you use, I don't know if you bought the cultures.
Yes, I did.
So that's ready in like 3-4 days.
Okay.
Ready to go in the refrigerator, and you could start eating it. You can eat it warm, or I like it chilled.
Yeah, I like it chilled too.
So that'd be ready to eat in 5 days.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. That's what I like about it. I had to use containers that didn't have a lid, so because I have airlocks, and so I had to do the old-fashioned way, with put water in a Ziploc bag, put that Ziploc bag in a Ziploc bag, and then that was my cover. And then I used my weights, because I have weights, pebbles, whatever they're called, to hold that down. But now it's like, so I pulled it up. We had it for lunch yesterday.
So it just seemed to work fine with just the regular radishes, because the Dankin radishes, I get those quite often in that food bag I was just talking about that
they're a little spice, but then these must be kind of spicy. I didn't eat one by himself to know, but radishes are kind of spicy by themselves. So that's what I figured. Okay, this is Jamie's version. As my husband says, a lot of recipes morph and they become Jamie's.
Yep. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep. And so it's like, this is, it's not a Korean kimchi. Western Central Minnesota kimchi. There we go. Is that a thing now?
Yeah, maybe. You'll start a trend.
You use it with they made kimchi with what they had.
Right.
And so I made kimchi with what I had.
Yep. So it's just your version.
Instead of letting that 12 pounds go to waste. And it must have been sitting around before it was gifted to me, because the outer leaves were starting to turn lighter color and stuff, and I had to throw a few of the outer leaves away. So it's like it needed to be used. It's a different variety.
Yeah.
And it's a vegetable
and it's fermented. That's the big thing, right?
Yep.
Is you got this fermented food that's so good for your gut.
Yeah, because actually my granddaughter is struggling with gut health, constipation and stuff like that. She's 3. Her mama said she's constipated again, and she brought
Grandma to the rescue.
I have Kefir and our freeze-dried fruit she loves, and so when I can get that in her and get some Kefir in her and stuff like that. I have some. It's called breakfast pudding, but it's Kefir, chia seeds, oatmeal, frozen fruit, and then like maple syrup. My husband calls it slime. But I like it. It's a quick,
Yep.
not that I eat breakfast in the morning. I usually eat it in the afternoon, but it's a nice snack.
Well, it sounds like it would be really
And
healthy.
my son, I used to feed it to my granddaughter when she was younger. And he's like, what have you got her eating? And I'm like, it's good for her.
Grandma goulash. No.
Yeah. It's like, well, and my grandson has a cough and my daughter's like, okay, what are you doing for a cough? And I'm like, do this, 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 and this. It's like,
Yep.
and I'm going to do the same thing because my granddaughter came with the cough yesterday. And so it's like, I made some honey onions. You put honey on some chopped up onions and then you give them the juice that, the liquid juice.
Okay. So do you leave that sit for a certain amount of time?
I just did it until, this is TikTok. This is another thing I learned off TikTok is you're supposed to, they drained it after a few whiles. I'm just going to leave it sit and ferment. Mm-hmm. Because I do the same thing with garlic and stuff. And it's the liquid honey that's good. And so did my 3-year-old granddaughter like this? No. But her cough is much more productive. Her sinuses are draining clear. There's no green goo or anything and stuff. And she's like perky up and around, running around. Whereas yesterday, all she did was sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, she's our typical 3-year-old, like jabbering away and, grandma, look.
And then she's definitely feeling
yeah,
better.
she's feeling better. And so, so grandma's
Garlic is so good for you.
garlic and onions.
And we're in flu season now.
Yeah. And so I learned on TikTok too, is that you cut onions up and leave them around the room. And so I did.
Yep, I've heard of that.
So I got onions. So if you came in my house probably smells like onions right now. But it's like with what's going around for the little kids with respiratory issues and stuff like that, I thought I'm going to nail it and hit it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
heavy.
I know RSV's going around.
Yep.
I've seen a few posts about that.
Yeah, it's big in schools right now and stuff. So I was just like, no. And she's in daycare. And so it's like, so I kept her home.
Cesspool.
My son goes, why, do you think she can go to daycare? And I go, no, she can just stay here. And she's having every day of grandma force feeding this stuff to her. She's not happy with it, but we have to coerce her to to take it. It's like medicine. She goes, no medicine, but she feels better once it's in her.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Because actually, Bob, we were getting her to take this at lunchtime just before I came out here, he goes, my dad used to eat an onion sandwich every time he felt like he was getting sick. And I'm like going, okay, I could see the benefits of that. I mean, I do the same thing with raw garlic. If I feel something coming on, I will eat raw garlic. If I smell garlic, you know why.
She must be thinking she's getting sick.
Or there's somebody around me that's really sick and I don't want to get it. I'll do that too. If there's somebody around me sick and like, bring them on over. I'll start give me some garlic too.
I'll get them treated.
I'll treat them and then I'll start eating
Dr.
garlic.
Jamie.
Start eating garlic so that I don't get it.
Other thing, I just thought of this just now. Jill Winger of the Prairie Homestead released her prairie planners back from the printer.
So you can go to her website.
Yes, you can go to her website and order it. 2/3 of them are already sold.
Oh, do it quickly.
Came out. So if you're interested in it, Jamie has hers right in front of her.
Yep.
She actually has she actually did the download.
Yes.
And she's
printed it out.
Yep, printed it out, and she's got a binder and she's got it all fancy here.
Stuff that we've
Yep. And I am waiting for mine. Mine's coming from Jill. I have one ordered. And so I'll have the smaller version because I'll have the pocketbook size. You altered the version
I
to make
printed it at our business and so it came out full size.
Yep. So you've got a tablet.
Yeah, basically, which is just, it works good because gives you more room to write.
Yes, it does. And I tell you, Jamie uses it because it is here in front of me and I can see she's got all kinds of notes on it.
Yep. And actually I took her project page and turned it into Two Gals Homesteading. So that's where I'm writing my notes for this. I need to turn my journal. Actually, I was saying that we need to write down what we're doing almost daily. Because so it's like, what have you been doing? I'm like, I don't know. What have I been doing? It's like Rich and I were talking earlier. It's like you study for a test. And as soon as you answer that question, it's like, I don't remember what I answered the question. It's done. It's out of my mind. I don't need to know it anymore.
Yep. So if you're looking for a really decent planner, go visit Jill over there at the Prairie Homestead. And
I love the looks of the outside of it.
Yep. She's old-fashioned on purpose. Yep. And she's got this beautiful planner and she's got everything covered. Now, I think she's even got livestock section in there somewhere.
There's a gardening section. There's a kitchen inventory section. Butchering. Oh, she even has conversions, like kitchen substitutes. Conversions, conversions and mores. What's a gallon? A gallon is for... how many quarts, how many
Yep.
pints and stuff in that, and
Uh-huh.
teaspoons. So
So she's covered a lot, and it's a very thorough, well thought out.
a menu.
book.
She has places to write menu ideas down too.
Oh,
Yeah, menu ideas, entrees.
nice.
So to write down the recipes because I've done it. It's like, I cook. What do I cook? What do we want to eat?
Yeah.
I have no ideas. I have no idea what to do.
Yeah, I was just talking with Kelsey, and she's like, have you made tortillas? And I'm like, well, I have in the past. I haven't made tortillas for a really, really long time. But I said, I'm pretty sure Jamie's made them.
I've made them in the past
Yep,
too.
Yeah, and I said, I think she uses her discard from her sourdough.
I want
said,
to, but
yep.
I've done that one time.
Yep.
But it was like, it's a time factor.
Yeah, and well, anyway, I'm like, oh goodness. She's like, because we're gonna have fajitas, because I made bone broth from the beef shanks that I did a few days ago or whatever, and so now I'm gonna utilize all that. And I'm like, gee whiz, girl. I want to be like you when I grow up. She's like, well, what can I say? I'm a planner. She says.
Yeah.
So she would probably really benefit.
Yeah, she'd
from
really
this
like
book.
this. Yeah, I'm kind of a wing it. She has a brain dump page.
Okay.
And the first month I used it because I added on because it's just January through December of next year, 2023. But since I had the digital form, I added 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I have November and December that I added in. And so, but I used the brain dump page, to get everything out of my head. And then but then I turned into the weekly. I don't do a whole lot of where I need to plan out what, her weekly thing. That becomes my weekly to-do list. The brain dump has become big project
Oh, okay.
ideas. Okay, these
Yep.
are things that we need to get done around the house, around
Yep.
the farm, at
Yep.
the business. Then the weekly, 6 to whatever time slot things. So this is what I need to do today.
Well, that's a good way to keep yourself organized, though. You see, you're much more organized than I am.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm really good at making lists, but I'm not really good at always. It's like I'll look back. I was like, oh, I did. And sometimes even just writing it down, it's out of my head, and I know I could go look. But I may not go back and look at that list. But it must be a thing where it's like I've written it down, so it happens somehow.
Okay.
I do seem to get more things done. And then even because I'll have those days that, we all have those days. It's like, oh, I don't feel like doing anything, especially if it gets really cold, it gets below zero. All I want to do is come home from our business, sit down in a chair, give me a hot cup of tea and a blanket and a TV remote. And I'm there in the recliner, like just snuggling and stuff. And it's like, and I don't get hardly anything done. And then there are nights it's like I'm working until 10 o'clock at night, and then it's like, okay, let's go to bed. I'm not well organized.
I told Kelsey, I said, well, you're really, she's like, well, I'm a planner. And I said, well, this is why I have an Instapot, because at 4:00, I'm like, what are we having for supper? And I'm like, well, I can always throw something frozen in the Instapot.
Yep.
And it'll be done by the time we're done with chores.
Yeah.
So that's why I have an Instapot. I absolutely love my Instapot for that. And
Yeah,
when it happened last night. I was like, oh, we don't have anything. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna make a venison roast. This is my evening yesterday or my late afternoon. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I go and I get the venison roast. Never made venison roast in the Instapot. So I'm like looking on, on the internet trying to find the information. And I found this, I don't even remember what her name was, but she's the Huntress something, the Orange Huntress or something was her name. And she was making venison. And she's like, well, I've already taken the silver lining off of this before I froze it. And she had it was vacuum sealed and she's like, and it's frozen yet. And she's like, but because I know I cook it frozen, I always make sure I take that silver lining off. And I look at my roast and I'm like, I've got a frozen roast with the lining on. I'm like, okay, fine. So I wrap that back up, throw it back in the freezer, go down, grab another roast out of the freezer, a beef roast this time, because I figured the other roast from the deer has probably got the same thing. So
yeah.
I'll get something familiar. So I bring that up here, unwrap that, realize it's too big for my Instapot. Let's try this again. So I go back down and I find another roast. That one was only like 2 pounds, and so it fit perfectly
in your Instant Pot.
I'm like, come on, people. I already have the squash and the potatoes and the carrots already in the oven ready to go. I just need a piece of meat. I was like, I might end up with a chicken but pretty soon here. But yes, I finally got it, and the roast was really quite small. We didn't even have any leftovers from it, but normally I do. But this was a really small roast because I knew it had to fit in the Instant Pot.
I've done the same thing. It's like, yep. Well, actually, this week it was like, I kind of try to go through my refrigerator, weekly, bi-weekly, and be like, oh, that's a science project that we don't need anymore.
Yep.
And I was like, kind of did that. Garbage is Sunday night at our house, because they pick it up Monday morning, like 8:30 in the morning. So you can't even get up in the morning to do it. You got to do it before. I was like, oh, there's a mess of leftovers in here. Monday to Tuesday, I didn't even cook. It was like, I took a dry erase and wrote on the outside of my refrigerator what was inside of it, thinking maybe somebody would eat some of it. But we cooked it. I mean, I didn't have to plan lunches those 2 days because you were pulled out of the refrigerator. And it's like either use it or waste it and throw it away.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So I think we're done.
We've been rambling for a while.
We've been rambling for probably 2 hours. I don't know. But anyway, so once again, we'd like to thank picosupply.com for sponsoring our podcast. Make sure you check us out at twogalshomesteading.com. We're also on Facebook, Two Gals Homesteading, and we're on TikTok.
We have a video. We have a video up on TikTok.
Okay, and Instagram.
You're in charge of that. We do more over there.
So until next time.
Put some kefir on it.